Hello, this is going to be your video on how to operate your RomanProps Inception Elite. So let's just get right into it. This is going to be the lightsaber separated in all its parts. When I ship it to you, it's going to be all together in one. The battery will be a little separate. It'll be in a little container. But anyways, I want to start off by saying this cloth is really cool. I like it quite a bit, and it fits perfectly with the lightsaber, so decided to keep it in the video here. And I'll be shipping that back to you, of course. But anyways, let's just get right into it. This is going to be your battery pack. The positive is towards the NeoPixel connector and the negative is towards the speaker. This is a Smuggler's Outpost 28mm Elite speaker, Elite bass speaker. I got this chassis from Black Lion Sabers. Absolutely love this chassis. The tiny little details really do it for me. It's fantastic. One of my favorite sabers I've installed, just in pure aesthetics. So there you go, you just put it in, negative, positive, and this is all set. And this is going to be a couple different options you can do to put the battery in place. This is just the way that I like to do it and that I found is the best. So you take your battery pack, you take the pommel, and you slide it in. The way it's designed is it's got this little lip, so when it slides in, it won't go any farther. And then you take the back end, and then you screw it in place. If I can get the threads right, there we go. Screw it in place, and then it will rattle around a little bit, but that's just to allow some spin room. But as you can see, it doesn't come out either way, so you're all set. Now you just take the main body part and stick it in any way you'd like. There might be a little bit of a catch in there, but that's just like the lip of the little ring that screws everything in place. So you just have to put it in, screw it in place, screw it in all the way. So when I said you have a few options on how you do that, what I mean is you can unscrew the whole booster section in addition to the pommel, but I found that this is kind of useless and doesn't do anything because you can't access the battery, you can't really take it out much, so this is kind of useless. Plus it loosens this up a little bit, which is just annoying to put back on and take off again. So I find it best just to leave the booster on the entire time. So leave it nice and tight, and then whenever you take the battery out, you just unscrew the pommel and then pull it out. Very easy, very simple. Now, you have your kill switch here. Flick it up. You've got the Proffie OLED screen, which is great. Blue looks fantastic here. And then you've got your battery level indicator. Right now, I think it's about 2 bars low. So that just shows your battery. And what I was saying, how this is beautifully designed, I love the details here, the little stripes, because even though this is printed from my printer, like all my other chassis, this just looks so much nicer because of all the tiny little details that are put into it, which I absolutely love. So I got to learn how to do this for my chassis to make it that much better, because I love this, how it turned out. Anyways, next up I'll talk to you about the buttons. This was an interesting situation. I haven't done it in this way before. I haven't worked on the RomanProps thin necks yet, and they all seem to have the same kind of clamp button solution. So this is a whole big plastic thing going from here to here that's screwed in place in the middle, and in order for me to make it work, I got the buttons. You'll see from the build videos on TikTok that I've got the buttons sitting here and here. I have them glued in place so that the little, I don't know, the leads, the soldered points don't touch the metal part, because it just didn't work at that point. So I just glued it in place, made the glue cover the solder points so that they don't touch anything, and it works perfectly. And then I secured it down not only with the glue but also with the screws. I actually got a new screw to screw the clamp box into the clamp section. The screw is going to be longer now because I saw on the chassis there was a little spot for a longer screw to hold it in place, and before then I was just using this little screw to hold the whole chassis in place. You can unscrew it and screw it back in place, but I was just using this to hold it in place, and I didn't like it because it wasn't as secure as I'd like, and eventually it might wear out. But essentially I just got a longer screw, because I also got a new screw for this one, a shorter one, I tried to swap screws because this was shorter, this was a longer, but this one was too long for the chassis, so I just got a shorter screw. So I got a shorter screw, put it in here so that the chassis can slide in, and then I got a slightly longer screw for this section here that screws into the chassis. If you ever want access to that, you just have to pull this off. It's currently glued in, so you may need to pull a little bit hard, but I don't think you'll ever need access to the rocker here. But if you ever do, you can just pull the metal part off, access the screw, and I did get it so that you can screw it in, so it's no longer just glued in place. So you just unscrew it, pull the plastic part out, and then you have access to the 2 screws underneath. You'll see what I mean from the build videos. Anyways, you've got, I sanded these down here in order to allow the rocking motion for the buttons. So you press the top, and you've got the power button, and then the bottom is the auxiliary button. I spent a while to get it perfect so that you still have this sort of clicky sensation and clicky sound to it. So I sanded it down, tested it, sanded it more, tested it more, and I got it to a point where you do have that. Here, let me turn it off. That clicky sound. The power button is a little less clicky, but you can still hear it. Well, you can still feel it, at least. This one is definitely more clicky. But either way, I think it feels great for both the auxiliary and power buttons. So now, if you're not aware, this is the Proffie board. The SD card has your sound fonts, and it also has the config file that I set up for you. So whenever you want to update this, or if there's any glitches and you want to just re-upload the config to get the glitches to go away, the config I used and made is just in the SD card. Now, you'll need the 90-degree MicroUSB port, or MicroUSB thing, to plug into the port here. And then plug it into the computer. Whenever you do that, make sure you don't have the battery in. So take the whole battery pack out before you plug it into the computer, because people have ended up frying their Proffie boards by having 2 sources of power going into it, which is bad. To access the SD card, I recommend getting a pair of like tweezers or something, grabbing the sides and then pulling it out. Works pretty well. And then when you put it in, you just keep it flat, put it against it, and maybe just like let it rest a little bit, and then put it in, and it'll be fine. I did glue this in with like 2 little drops of Loctite to keep it in place, because I didn't like the way that the captain tape looked when I did it. It was just very not clean looking, and I really liked the way this looked, so I wanted to keep it as clean as possible. So it's got a couple drops of Loctite, so you should just be able to pry it off if ever you need to do that. Before you do that though, I would recommend unscrewing this screw section first so that the board has a little bit more space to pop up, but I don't think you'll ever need to do that as long as you just be mindful of taking out the SD card and then carefully putting it back in place. So you should be fine in all those aspects. And then let's see, what else is there? You've got your NeoPixel connector, short pins, and then I think I have it set up. Yeah, I have it set up so it's a turbine. There you go. And then it reacts to the clashes, and then it winds down. That's your independently wired NeoPixel connector, which is pretty sweet. You can always just customize that however you'd like in the config file. And if you don't know how to customize or upload anything, I do have a bunch of links in the description of this video to help you out with that for whenever you want to do it. So now let's plug it into the top half. So we have the NeoPixel connector with the recessed blade. I don't have a recessed blade, so I got a little creative with how I'm going to show the blade to you. But anyways, you're going to want that recessed blade. I have this programmed for 122 NeoPixel length. I'm not entirely sure how many pixels are in the one that you're going to be getting, but I did a rough estimate and I landed around there, and it should be fine. But if it does need adjusting, definitely look into how to customize the Proffie board and just change the config, because it's just one number in the config file. So as long as you can just get it to where you can upload it to the Proffie from your computer, you'll be fine. So you've got the NeoPixel connector in there, NeoPixel connector up there, and then you just put it in. I don't like twisting both at the same time because, you know, it's got twist on and twist off. So it triggers if you twist this while you screw it in, which gets annoying. So just put it in, screw on the top half while keeping the bottom half pretty motionless. Got the connection sound, and it'll swap to the working sound font. I have this around 60 to 70% volume because I think that's plenty loud and it makes the speaker not crackly and stuff. So I like keeping it around there, but you can always just adjust the volume however you'd like. There is a volume control on here. I did forget what the controls are for that, but I'm pretty sure you just hold down one of these buttons when it's off. Anyways, you can look that up, or I have it in the description of the video. So you have your on, off just by tapping it. You've got the auxiliary button, which does the blaster blocks. If you hold it and then clash, you've got the blade locked up. And if you point it down and like clash at that angle, if you hold it down and clash at that angle, it does do a tip drag, but it's really hard to do without a blade on right now, and I don't want to do any clash mentions or clash motions or whatever with this, because what I did for the blade is I have a 7/8 inch blade with a 1-inch adapter, and then I just put it in place here. There you go. And then turn it on. Doesn't look great, but I don't want to try the clashes too much, but I can. But as you can see, this is a longer blade than the one that you're going to be getting, so I don't have it programmed all the way to the tip. But if I have it at an angle here and do some sort of, well, if you just, there you go, tip drag. So it's sort of a stabby motion. Anyways, that's the blade. If you want to cycle through the fonts, you just press the auxiliary button.
Green, purple,
and that goes forward.
yellow, white.
This is the weapon. Yeah. Thank you. Apology. Smooth. Team C.
There you go. So those are all the fonts that I have. The one before blue is the blade style, or the blade style for battery level indication. So it'll show up on the blade how much battery you have. But if you want to go backwards for the fonts, you just hold it down, or you hold down the auxiliary button.
Green.
Oh, no. Sorry, that was a one button setup. So you point it downwards.
Blue.
And then it goes backwards. So you keep it anything other than pointed downwards and it goes forward.
Blue. Green. Blue.
And then downwards goes backwards. You also have color change, of course. So if you put the blade in and then do the auxiliary and activation at the same time, you can then twist it to change the color. I will put it back on blue. And then you just press the button to accept it. There you go. Sorry about that, my phone is running out of storage space, so I'll make this quick. The last two things, maybe three things to keep in mind. If there is a tight fit for your blade, the recessed blade that you get, make sure you always screw it in clockwise instead of counterclockwise, because you don't want to risk unscrewing the emitter here, because that could put tension on the wires inside and make stuff go wrong. So make sure it's always tight, and clockwise when you put it in, clockwise when you put it out. That's if it's a tight fit. If you do ever have to twist it counterclockwise, just make sure you hold on to the emitter to make sure it doesn't spin. The other thing to keep in mind, or just a thing I'll mention, is this is the one with the sound venting, not the screen accurate one, which is the one without the sound venting. If you have the screen accurate one on, it does not sound great. It's very, 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 very silent. This is much louder and much better. So whenever you want to play with it, just make sure this is the one that's on. Now, sorry about that. That's my rabbit. She always likes to drink when I'm filming. But the last thing to keep in mind is definitely, if you don't know how, learn how to upload the config file, because sometimes with the blade detection, or the chassis detection in this case, with that feature, it can cause glitches to happen that are a little unexpected, especially with Proffie. So it either gets solved by turning it off or turning it on, but more than likely the case is you'll have to solve it by just re-uploading the config file, which is super easy. You just plug it in, press upload, and boom, it's fixed. Sometimes it may take a couple uploads or something like that to make it work properly, but just make sure you're on top of that because it can glitch out a little bit. So make sure all of this stays in your mind just to how to operate this. It's not that fragile at all because it's very, very solid. This chassis is not going to shift anywhere. The board is secured in place. The battery section is nice and secure as well, so it's going to be very hard for you to break it. But if you do, or if something goes wrong and you can't seem to fix it by uploading the config file, you can always send it back to me and I'll fix it for you. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'll have a bunch of resources in the description of the video. You can always reach out to me on Instagram again and message me. It should be fine though. This is one of the most solid constructed lightsabers that I've made because it is absolutely beautifully done. The only thing that'll be strange is the chassis detection feature if ever that goes all glitchy. But the thing that fixes that is always the config file, so make sure you upload that. So I guess I'll just turn this off. If you have any questions, just let me know. And again, you can always just reference this video or the description in order to, and look, you can just take out the battery even when that's in, which is lovely. But yeah, hope you like the lightsaber. It was super fun for me to make, and it came out beautifully. So I hope you like it, and may the Force be with you. Hey, sorry, before you go, this is one last thing. This is your blade plug. I forgot to mention this in my original recordings, so I'm doing this after the fact. I 3D printed a plastic circle and glued it in place right inside of this blade plug because this whole thing is made of probably aluminum, which is conductive, I believe. So this is going to be sitting on top of the pins in your emitter, and I don't want the positive and negative pins to touch each other and short circuit something or fry something. So I decided to print out this 3D printed circle, glue it there so that the pins will only be touching this plastic instead of touching the metal itself. So keep that in mind in case you ever decide to replace it or something like that. Just make sure there's no metal touching the pins, which is why I have this for you. Anyways, there you go. That's it. I'm going to be shipping it off to you now. So enjoy.